You need to turn your camera off. That sometimes helps.
Okay, let me try that.
Okay, and we are recording.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the May meeting of the ICOC and the Application Review Subcommittee. I've got myself on blocked video here because of potentially unstable internet. Want to make sure we don't lose that. So thank you all for attending. Maria, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Dan Bernal, Leandra Clark-Harvey. Leandra?
Present.
Thank you. Anne-Marie Dulege?
Yes.
Isabel Dudon?
Yes.
Elena Flowers?
Present.
Mark Fisher-Colbury?
Here.
Fred Fisher?
Here.
David Higgins? Steve Julesgaard?
Here.
Rich Lahara?
Here.
Dave Martin?
Here.
Christine Miskowski?
Morning.
Lauren Miller-Rogan?
Here.
Adriana Padilla?
Here.
Joe Panetta?
Here.
Al Rolette?
Here.
Marvin Southard? Jonathan Thomas?
Here.
Art Torres?
Here.
Carol Watson? So we have quorum.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, we will now go straight into the Application Review Subcommittee meeting. We have one item for consideration, which is consideration of applications submitted in response to clinical trial stage projects program announcement, CLINS 1, 2, or 3. We will have a presentation from Dr. Zambrano. Gil?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Let me get this in presentation mode. So, all right, so we are starting this meeting as we do with all others, including our grants working group meetings. When we start them, we also make sure that we are all on the same page in terms of what our mission is and what our goal is ultimately, which is to accelerate world-class science to deliver transformative regenerative medicine treatments in an equitable manner to a diverse California and world. This is a reminder of what our 2021-22 budget allocation is for our clinical program. So for the clinical program, thus far, the board, the Application Review Subcommittee has approved $70.1 million in awards. Today, we have pending $27 million, such that if all of those are approved, we would have an unused balance of about $65 million remaining for the fiscal year, which ends at the end of June. This is a reminder of how we score our clinical applications. They use a scale of 1, 2, or 3. Scores of 1 mean that these have exceptional merit and warrant funding. A score of 2 means that they need improvement and don't warrant funding. And so these applications will typically go back to the applicant for corrections, revisions, providing some additional data that can come back to whatever the next cycle is for the review. A score of 3 means that it's sufficiently flawed, it doesn't warrant funding, and we don't accept those for at least 6 months from the time of the review. The review criteria that are utilized to give these scores by the grants working group are based on the following questions. Does the project hold the necessary significance and potential for impact? Meaning, what value does it offer, and is it something that's worth doing? Does it have a good rationale? Is it well planned and designed? Is the project feasible, meaning they have the appropriate team and the resources available to carry out the proposed activities? And then lastly, does the project address the needs of underserved communities? This is a reminder of what the composition of the grants working group itself is. It includes scientific grants working group members who are responsible for the scientific evaluation of it. They are the ones that provide the scientific score that you will see on all applications. And there's a variety of experts and backgrounds that contribute to these reviews. There are also patient advocate and nurse members who are also members of the board, who are responsible for conducting the DEI evaluation of the applications, providing a patient perspective on the significance and impact of these proposals, and also providing oversight on the process. So you will see a DEI score on all applications. These are from the patient advocate and nurse members, and each application gets a vote on whether the process was conducted in a fair manner, which is conducted by those members as well. In addition, we will often have scientific specialists who come in to fill in gaps that the primary 15 members may not have in a given panel. They will provide an initial but not a final scientific score. So basically they contribute their expertise that informs the rest of the grants working group. All right, so the first application under consideration is CLIN 212823, and this is one that I presented the grants working group recommendations of last month. And the Application Review Subcommittee voted on this unanimously to approve it. However, we have an administrative error that Chairman Thomas will expand on and explain. Chairman Thomas.
So thank you, Gil. So as Gil says, you will recall that this was voted on previously at our last ARS meeting and was unanimously passed. Subsequently, we determined there was an administrative error whereby one of the members of the ARS who was conflicted on this particular application was inadvertently called upon and inadvertently voted on this particular grant, which is what gives rise to the conflict here and the need to immediately rectify at the first available moment, which is this meeting. So that member, by the way, has reported, self-reported to the FPPC to outline this administrative error and action in the interest of immediate and full transparency, and is waiting to hear back from the FPPC with respect to that report. Because this was a vote that did have this conflict, I'm rescinding the results of that vote, and as a result, we need to have a revote with that member not voting on this occasion. And so would like to ask at this point for a motion to approve this measure, this grant.
So moved.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion by members of the board? Any discussion by members of the public? Okay, Gil, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get in the middle of your presentation. If you could just complete the slide presentation, please.
Okay, do you want me to go over this particular application again, or?
I don't think that's necessary. We had a full vetting of it on the last time, but I think it's good for the board to see what the strong support that it had both from the GWG and from a DEI perspective. So
There's no action required on our part?
yeah, we need to re-vote. So we have this motion here that was just moved and seconded. So are there any public comments on this motion?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. Maria, will you please call the roll?
Leandra Clark Harvey.
Yes.
Anne Marie Dulege.
Yes.
Elena Flowers.
Yes.
Mark Fisher Colbury.
Aye.
Fred Fisher.
Aye.
Steve Julesgaard.
Yes.
Rich Lahara.
Yes.
Dave Martin.
Yes.
Christine Miaskowski.
Yes.
Lauren Miller Rogan.
Yes.
Adriana Padilla.
Yes.
Joe Panetta.
Yes.
Al Rolette.
Yes.
Marvin Southard. Jonathan Thomas.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. Gil, on to the next, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next two applications were reviewed during the April cycle of the Grants Working Group clinical review. And so we'll start with Clin 213017. And so the title of this one is a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled investigation of autologous muscle-derived progenitor cells for the treatment of dysphagia. And so this is a progenitor cell therapy. Dysphagia is a swallowing disorder that occurs following chemotherapy treatment for head and neck cancer. And the goal of this proposal is to complete a phase 1/2 clinical trial to assess safety and preliminary efficacy. The funds requested are just over 11 million and are providing co-funding about 2 million. A little background on this disease indication: treatment for head and neck cancer will often result in muscle damage, which then affects the ability of many patients to swallow. And so that disorder may cause patients to experience malnutrition, dehydration, among other things, and even possibly death. And so the value of this proposed therapy is that the current standard of care typically will include rehabilitation exercises or surgery where they remove the larynx. And there's no other treatments really that exist to effectively restore function. So if this is successful, the proposed therapy would offer patients the potential for an improvement or ability to restore their ability to swallow. And this is a stem cell project because the therapeutic candidate itself is composed of muscle-derived progenitor cells. In our portfolio, we don't have any other clinical stage awards that are active that are addressing this indication or that would otherwise be similar to this proposal. The applicant has received CIRM funding in the past. They received an IND enabling award for a different indication, which was for airway stenosis, and to develop a bit of a complex product that their hope was to file an IND and begin a clinical trial with. But unfortunately, that the development of that did not work out due to technical reasons, not due to performance. And so that was one award they received in the past. The recommendation from the Grants Working Group as it relates to this current application is as follows. There was a unanimous scoring of 1 for the application. There were no members that scored it a 2 or a 3. The DEI score is given by the patient advocate and nurse members was a score of 9. That's the median from the members who scored. And the CIRM team recommendation is to fund this application for the amount shown of just over $11 million. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Gil. Do we have a motion to approve?
So approved.
Second?
Art, you
Second.
cannot make the motion on this, please. Thank you.
Oh, so I can't even speak on it, right?
No.
I'll move.
Well,
Was that Fred?
condolences to my late mother.
Fred, was that you?
Yes.
Thank you. And did we have a second? I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's Elena, I can
Mark
second.
Fisher Colbury. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have discussion by
Oh,
members?
Elena, you cannot be the second. I'm sorry.
Leandra Clark Harvey, second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome.
Do we have discussion by members of the board? Any comments from members of the public? Hearing none, Maria, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Leandra Clark Harvey.
Yes.
Anne Marie Dulege.
Yes.
Isabel Dudon,
Yes.
Mark Fisher Colbury,
Yes.
Fred Fisher,
Yes.
David Higgins, Steve Julesgard,
Yes.
Rich Lahara,
Yes.
Dave Martin,
Yes.
Lauren Miller Rogan. Lauren? Okay. Adriana Padilla,
Yes.
Joe Panetta,
Yes.
Al Rolette,
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Gil, please proceed to the third and final grant for today's meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next application is CLIN 213355. So the title of this one is Phase 1-2 Study of a Neural Cell Therapy in Subjects with Drug-Resistant Unilateral Mesial Temporal Lobe Epilepsy. And so this is a cell therapy derived from human embryonic stem cells to create an allogenic neural cell therapy. The indication is for drug-resistant unilateral mesial temporal lobe epilepsy. Their goal is to complete a phase 1-2 clinical trial to assess safety and preliminary efficacy. The
Sorry,
amount
my computer
requested.
completely froze, and I couldn't unmute, not sure what's happening, may have to restart.
The funds requested are just under 8 million, and the co-funding provided is about 3.5 million. So background on this indication: epilepsy affects more than 3 million people in the US, and approximately 143 to about 191,000 cases are of drug-resistant mesial temporal lobe epilepsy. So patients that experience epileptic seizures are treated with anti-seizure medications, of which there are a variety, but only about 44% become seizure-free. And about a third of individuals with epilepsy have the drug-resistant seizures. The standard of care may involve surgical resection of the temporal lobe as one option, but many patients either aren't eligible or interested in such an invasive procedure. So if this is successful, the proposed therapy does offer patients a potential for a much safer, less invasive, and more effective option to treat those seizures. And so why is this a stem cell or gene therapy project? This therapeutic candidate is manufactured from human embryonic stem cells. There are no other active clinical stage awards that are targeting this disease indication currently in our portfolio. And the applicant has received CIRM funding in the past, actually 2 different awards at the discovery stage as well as the translational stage that have led ultimately to the current award, current proposal that they have before us in developing this proposed therapy for mesial temporal lobe epilepsy. So the recommendations from the grants working group are shown here. We had a unanimous vote of a score of 1 by the scientific members of the working group. The DEI score was a 9. That is the median, is scored by the patient advocate and nurse members. The CIRM team recommendation is to fund this application for the award amount of 7.99 million. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Gil. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move.
Moved by Anne Marie. Do we have a second?
Second, Leandra.
Okay, thank you, both of you. Are there questions or comments from members of the board?
Yes. JC, a question, if possible?
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually not so much a
Marie?
comment, but yes, Jill, can you please educate me on whether this represents a rather small portion of all the epilepsies possible? Is it a very narrow patient population or is it a broader patient population? And would there be an application of this to a broader patient population of patients with epilepsy?
Yes, no, that's a very good question. I think the estimate based on both the applicants and some of the reviewers that you're looking at about 12% of people with temporal lobe epilepsy, and temporal lobe epilepsy is the most common type that affects individuals. So it is a subportion, but the applicants do intend beyond this initial clinical trial to potentially expand it to other epilepsy types and maybe other seizure-inducing conditions beyond epilepsy if it's successful.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
This is Dave. Just a quick question. Is this the study? I didn't go back and look it up. There were 31 experimental and 31 controls in this study?
No, that was the previous application. This one
Okay.
is done in 2 stages. So they're starting with up to about 10 patients first to assess safety, and up to about 30 to assess the efficacy.
Thank you.
Gil, Isabel here. Sorry.
Isabel, you cannot comment.
Oh, all right.
Thank you, Maria. Any other comments from members of the board? Any comments from members of the public? Hearing none, Maria, will you please call the roll?
Leandra Clark Harvey,
Yes.
Anne Marie Dulege,
Yes?
Elena Flowers,
Yes.
Mark Fisher Colbury,
Aye.
Fred Fisher,
Yes.
Steve Julesgaard,
Yes.
Rich Lahara,
Yes.
Dave Martin,
Yes.
Christine Miskowski.
Maria, can I comment on this one?
Yes, you can.
Then yes.
Lauren Miller Rogan,
I'm so sorry. I was restarting and missed the entire presentation, so I'm not sure I should vote.
okay, thank you. Adriana Padilla,
Yes.
Joe Panetta,
Yes.
Al Rolette,
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas,
Yes.
Art Torres.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you, Maria. Gil, I believe that concludes your presentation.
It does.
Okay, thank you, and to your members of your team for your usual outstanding work. We're now out of the Application Review Subcommittee and into general public comments. Do we have any public comment on any matters?
We don't.
Okay, so we're concluding this, but before we do, with it's a bittersweet note that this is the last meeting for Dave Martin as a member of the ICOC and the Application Review Subcommittee. Dave is picking up shop and moving with family to North Carolina. And Dave, we will give you a proper recognition with the full board in June. But if you'd like to say a couple comments at this point, totally welcome.
I submitted my resignation letter to Treasurer Ma, and I just very simply stated that it's been a very interesting experience for me, both emotionally and intellectually. I've learned a lot, and I very much appreciate what CIRM is doing, and I'm enthusiastic about the future of CIRM and the patients, both California citizens, as well as global impact of CIRM. And it's quite startling what has been accomplished and what is clearly on the drawing board here. And as I've said before, I think that probably the greatest legacy of CIRM is going to be its educational problem or educational progress. Excuse me. Let me get rid of that. It's been quite an experience for me. And part of it also is meeting people, many of you on this ICOC board, and having some interactions with you, with all of you. And particularly, we were meeting in situ at the headquarters in Oakland to actually see and be able to interact with all of you. So I thank you all, and I thank the treasurer for allowing me to participate in California activities. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Dave. And as I say, we'll give you your full and proper due with the full complement of your board colleagues at our meeting in June, which will be a full board meeting. And you may need to reprise a couple of those statements, but I think it's been terrific having you on the board. But I'm going to save my main comments for June. Don't want to say goodbye quite yet. So, Maria, when is the June date again for members of the ARS?
June 27th. Yes, June 27th.
Okay.
And it really is a full board meeting. We've got a lot on the agenda.
Yes.
We are also having an ARS meeting the week prior. There's so much on the agenda that we wanted to take up the applications separately from the full board meeting. So you guys get to come to 2 meetings in like 5 days. I know you're really excited about that.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. On that note, thank you all very much for attending. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we stand adjourned.